Hello, everyone, and I am so sorry for the delay in starting this webinar. Thank you so much for joining anyway. My name is Brooke Meckler, and I am the director of the Law School Engagement and Advocacy Unit at Equal Justice Works, and I'm very excited to talk to you today about how to launch your public interest career with Equal Justice Works. Before we jump into the webinar, I want to make sure that everything is working properly. So if somebody can just type into the question feature that you can hear me, that you can see the closed captioning and that you can see my screen, that would be great. And then we'll get started. All right, so let's jump right in. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Equal Justice Works, we're a nonprofit organization. We're headquartered in Washington, D.C., but we partner with different funders and legal aid organizations from across the country to create opportunities for both law students and lawyers to transform their passion for equal justice into a lifelong commitment to public service. And we do that by offering a whole host of different opportunities for students to really launch their public interest careers. So that could be through a program that allows you to win an award for your public service, an opportunity for you to work in a student fellowship over the summer and get hands-on experience in public interest law. And also our postgraduate opportunities offer you your really first full-time fellowship or career start in the public interest world. So we really do have a lot of opportunities for you to jumpstart your public interest career, for you to start building your public interest resume. And what I'll do today is just review what all of those are. And if you have any questions about them, please feel free to type those in the question feature. I will have my email up at the end of the webinar, so you can always reach out to me offline and we can talk through some of these opportunities and the best way to apply. But that's really what we're going to be covering today. All right, so let's start with Equal Justice Works for law students. So here is a quick list of the ways that law students can get involved with Equal Justice Works while you're in school. So the easiest thing to do is join our network. You can also serve on your campus. You can serve in a summer position, or you can connect with us through some of our regional events. All right, so like I said, if you're not already connected to us by joining our network, that's something that you'll want to do right away. So once you join our network, and if you have already, you know that you get newsletters, you get access to webinars like this, you get different resources that we either find through other organizations or ones that we create ourselves so that you can more effectively navigate your career as a public interest law student. We'll invite you to different events that will allow you to connect with each other and Equal Justice Works staff and also Equal Justice Works fellows and alumni. We also have different scholarships, contests, and awards throughout each semester and each school year that will allow you, again, to really pursue your public interest career by adding to your resume the fact that you've shown, this huge commitment to public service by receiving one of these things. And then we're also always here to offer any personalized advice. If you're applying for one of our programs and you want to know the best way to really stand out, we'd love talking to students about how to do that. If you are looking sort of at a national you're trying to get the national perspective on what Equal Justice Works can do and how you can really pursue your career, we can connect you to different fellows who might work in a geographic area that you're interested in. There are a lot of ways that we can offer sort of personalized advice if you want to take advantage of that. But of course, your career services office is probably the best place to start with that sort of career advice. But we're also happy to share our insights with you as well. So one way that you can get involved through Equal Justice Works is by serving on your campus. And a way that you can do that is by becoming a student representative with Equal Justice Works. So student representatives are public interest law student leaders on law school campuses. And what you do as a student representative is really serve as an ambassador for Equal Justice Works. So you spread the word about our organization, you share information about all of our different programs and opportunities, the ones that I'll review today. You really become sort of an expert and more familiar with those opportunities so that you can share them with other students, and then they can pursue career careers the same way that you're able to as a student representative. This is a great opportunity to connect really strongly with Equal Justice Works, develop and strengthen your leadership skills, gain access to some exclusive resources that we offer student representatives, and really build a community for public interest law students on your campus. This is a great program to be involved in if you are part of your public interest network on campus or another affinity group that could really benefit by having a direct connection to Equal Justice Works. Applications are accepted all year round, but we do most of our recruiting for this program right about now. So in the summer, as you're gearing up for the next school year, we accept your applications, which is really just your resume and a quick statement about why you want to be a student rep. Then you'll typically have a quick conversation with me about your interest in the program and the expectations, and then you'll get started. We have a training for student representatives at the beginning of every year. We have other meetups so you can talk to other student reps about what they're doing on campus and how they're able to spread the word about equal justice and public interest law. And it's just really a great way to connect with people across the country and to be more elevated on your campus when it comes to Equal Justice Works. So I really encourage anyone who feels like they can benefit from this program to apply, and I look forward to seeing those applications. Another opportunity for students to get involved with Equal Justice Works is through our National Advisory Committee. So this committee is made up of 8 students and 8 law school professionals from across the country who really provide, strategic guidance, advice, a lot of feedback on all of our programs so that we can make sure that what we're offering to the law school community is actually resonating with your community. So this is a more elevated experience than a student representative position because you're actually representing your region on this committee, and we meet every month virtually to talk about some of the goals and to talk about how we're meeting them. And we also have an annual meeting every year in August where everyone comes together. We do brainstorming, we go through, the strategic plan of the organization, we get feedback from the NAC on what we're planning, and you also get to assist in outreach. This year and last year, the annual meeting was and is going to be virtual, but hopefully next year we can all meet in person and actually be able to spend some time in person talking about all of our initiatives. New members are selected each spring, and then you serve a 2-year term once you're selected. So if you're listening in today and you're a 2L or a rising 2L or a rising 3L, please apply in any stage of your law school career. We have students who applied as they were rising 3Ls, so they served their first year on the NAC as a 3rd-year law student and their 2nd year as a brand new lawyer. And that insight that they were able to offer was great. And it doesn't matter that you're not in law school anymore during some of your term. We still really encourage you to apply anyway. So if you're interested in that, look out this spring. I know that it's almost a year away. But look out this spring for those applications because it is a really great way to build connections, to get really involved with Equal Justice Works. And it's a great platform, to share what you're doing on your campus with people from across the country who might want to do similar things. This is a picture right here of our National Advisory Committee the last time we were able to meet in person in 2019. So you can see that it's a great group. And to the left there, that's Walter. He was on our National Advisory Committee, and he was, everybody was a standout, but he stood out so much that he was actually recommended to our board of directors at Equal Justice Works. So just to give you an idea of sort of the opportunities that can come from something like this. And now he's serving on our board, and that's among a lot of really amazing public interest leaders and other leaders in the legal community. All right, I mentioned this earlier, but if you do have any questions, feel free to type them in. I will also have my email up at the end. I know we're doing a webinar today instead of a Zoom meeting, so I can't see faces. There's, not an opportunity to raise hands as much as you would be able to in a Zoom meeting, unfortunately. But I do want to make sure that any questions you have are being answered. All right, so getting into some of the other ways that you can build your resume with Equal Justice Works, one of them being our Regional Public Interest Awards. So each February, we open up these awards to law students across the country to submit really just a personal statement talking about the impact that they've been able to have on their communities or on their campus in public service. So it's really our opportunity to identify and honor law students who have really provided that extraordinary service and have gone above and beyond as a public interest law student in a special way. So 8 students receive this award every year. You get $250. We also send you a plaque with your name on it that you can display in your home office or your real law office one day. And we also try to highlight you on all of our social media channels. We write a blog post about you. We're always just so excited to highlight the great work that students are doing in public service. Again, another great way to build your resume in sort of a special way when it comes to public service that's outside of an internship or a club that you might be in. It's a special award from an organization like ours. I know this is also something that you can't look forward to until February, but please keep your eye out for those applications because we award these regional public interest awards by region, which is why it's titled that. So you're not really competing with everybody across the country. You're only competing against the other schools in your region, and then you'll really be able to represent that region as an award winner. So I really encourage everyone to apply and even start thinking about how you might frame your application now. Another way to connect with Equal Justice Works, as well as our fellows and alumni and other staff members at our organization, is to attend one of our virtual regional events. And I keep saying regional because we try to sort of organize the way that we do our work regionally. Because we have a national presence, we want to make sure that we're giving enough attention to each region and sort of catering what we talk about and what we present based on what region you might be in, because there might be an issue area that might be more prevalent when it comes to legal issues where you are, or there might be fellows or alum in our programs that are working on something specific that we can connect you with. But with these regional events, they're virtual, they're over Zoom. What we'll typically do is give you a presentation about something that's going on with Equal Justice Works or focus in on a specific program. And then we'll go into breakout rooms so that you can talk to either the staff member that's working on that fellowship or a fellow or an alum that actually worked in that fellowship and were able to help communities within that position that they were serving or that they're serving at the moment. So it's just a good way to connect with others. We know that in law school, networking and making connections with other lawyers, and especially lawyers in the public interest field, are so important. So we will make sure to invite everyone on this webinar today to the next virtual event. There is not one planned at the moment, but last year we didn't start doing them until the spring semester. So that will probably be when we have our first set of them. All right, and now moving into our conference and career fair. I'm guessing that many of you joined the webinar today because you're interested in attending the conference and career fair this year. It will be held virtually. This is the largest national public interest career fair in the country. It has been for the past few years, and especially last year, because it was held virtually, we were able to make it accessible to so many more students who wouldn't have been able to attend in person, which it has been in person for, up until last year, several years before that. At a conference and career fair like this, it's both things. So first, it's a conference. That means that it's a full conference with different sessions focused on different areas of public interest law. We'll have a panel on environmental law, sometimes reproductive rights, transgender rights, criminal justice reform, and we have a lot of public interest leaders come to speak on those panels and talk really in depth about their careers in those areas and talk through ways that you can best pursue those types of careers. So on top of the conference, we have a full-fledged career fair, meaning that you can participate in a couple different ways, but the ways that are included are pre-scheduled interviews, meaning that once registration opens, you can apply for interviews with the over 150 employers that attend the conference and career fair. And then if you're selected for an interview, you actually interview during the fair. And we have so many students who will have multiple interviews throughout the fair with different public interest employers. And if you're looking for an internship position for the summer, it's a great place to go. Also, if you're looking for a postgraduate position, if you're a Rising 3L right now and you want to attend the conference and career fair to secure your post-grad position, we have a lot of employers who hire for those positions at CCF, and we tend to call it CCF because it's a little bit shorter. So you can approach the fair that way, secure different interviews, and really, lock down your position for the summer or for after you graduate. Other ways you can participate are by informally talking to employers throughout the fair. So you can do that through Table Talk, which is 2 hours each day during the fair. And employers are just sort of sitting at their booth, their virtual booth, and you can come in and talk to them about what their organization does, what you're most interested in, and how you might be able to fit into that organization at some point. We have had a lot of students who have had success informally talking to employers during this Table Talk, but securing an interview after the fact, or still working with that organization from that informal discussion, even though it wasn't a formal interview. So those are sort of two things that you can look forward to: the conference and interviews and table talks during the fair. But then we also have mock interview opportunities. We have resume review opportunities. We have networking opportunities throughout the entire fair. You can talk to Equal Justice Works alum. You can talk to fellows. You can talk to staff members about your fellowship application. We just really offer as much as we possibly can when it comes to building your career and securing a position. So it's something that every student who's interested in public service should probably attend, and it's so easy to attend this year because it is virtual. There's a $25 fee to attend. Many schools offer to pay that fee for students, so definitely ask your school if that's something that they always do, if they're willing to do, if they didn't know that they could do, and we can always work with them to make sure that those fees are covered. But that's the fee to attend, and otherwise there's really no barrier for you attending, even if you don't have an interview. If you're not able to attend every single session, that's okay. For as much as you can attend, I really encourage you to do that, because it's a great way to sort of jumpstart your public interest career, no matter where you are in your law school career. All right, if you have any questions about the conference and career fair, feel free to type them in. And again, my email will be up at the end as well. All right, so moving into how you can serve as a summer fellow with Equal Justice Works. And right now we have two different student programs that offer you a summer experience at a legal aid organization where you're working on a specific issue area. So the first one I'll review is the Rural Summer Legal Corps. This is one of my favorite programs at Equal Justice Works. This is in conjunction with Legal Services Corporation. We partner with them on this, and 35 law students serve at LSC funded sites across the country each summer. Each site has a different project focus depending on what that host organization deemed most important for that student to work on. So we have students working on housing issues, working with victims of domestic violence, working on the opioid crisis, working on tribal law, really you name it. We probably have a Rural Summer Legal Corps student fellow working in that issue area in some way, shape, or form. With the Rural Summer Legal Corps, because they're LSC hosted sites, it's focused on civil legal aid. So if you're somebody who wants to sort of work in the criminal justice field, that is an opportunity that you probably won't be able to find with the RSLC. But we do actually have a student this summer working on expungements and working on reentry work, which is very important in the civil legal aid world as well. When it comes to the RSLC, just some logistics, you work 300 hours over the summer. And for those of you who are in internships right now or your own fellowships, you know that 300 hours goes by pretty fast. It's usually completed between 8 to 10 weeks over the summer. And for your service, you receive a $5,000 stipend. And that stipend can be used for anything that you need to. There's no restrictions on what you can use that stipend for. And also, you are welcome to get funding from other sources on top of that stipend. So if you have an opportunity at your school to get a fellowship funding that way, if there's another source, another foundation that's offering law students funding for the summer, we allow you to get as much as possible. It's always great to maximize your earnings over a summer, especially in public interest law. So there's no restrictions on what you can do outside of that $5,000. What's also great about this program is that we have a really intense training at the beginning of the summer. Again, this year and last year, both trainings have been virtual, but it focuses on different skills like client interviewing. We're able to talk to those lawyers who have worked in rural communities before and talk about the challenges and talk about the justice gap and how they're able to fulfill it with the work that they're doing. And also it's a great opportunity for you to meet all of the other RSLC student fellows in the program. Applications are of course closed right now because we're in the middle of our 2021 student fellowship program, but applications will open back up at the end of December. And when you apply for this program, you'll be asked to share your resume and a statement about why you want to participate in the program. So that's something that you don't have to start crafting now, but when you do apply for the program, you get to pick your top 3 host sites that you'd most like to serve at, and we'll send your application to those 3 sites. So you might get 3 different interviews when it comes to this program because each site is interested in you. So that is something to look forward to. Leading up to December, we will have much more information. We'll have other webinars that primarily focus on the Rural Summer Legal Corps, but if you're somebody who is very interested in working in public service, civil legal aid, if you have any connection to a rural community, this is probably a really great fit for you. All right, the other program that we have for students who work in a fellowship over the summer is our disaster resilience program. So at the moment, we only have 6 students working this summer alongside our disaster resilience program fellows, but next summer we'll be able to fund 14 students, and those students will be working in New Orleans, New Mexico, and California on different issues related to disaster law. What's really great and unique about this program is that the students working within it work alongside current Equal Justice Works fellows to help communities navigate the legal issues that take place before, during, after disasters. So you're working right under a fellow who is doing their postgraduate work as this lawyer that's helping those victims of disasters. And so it's just a really great opportunity to learn directly from somebody who's working in that space as a fellow. Like the Rural Summer Legal Corps, it's an 8 to 10 week placement. You get a $5,000 stipend for 300 hours of service. And likewise, the application for this program will open in December, and the lead up will have a lot more information on how you should be applying and what the application materials will include when you do apply for this program. All right, and I know it's not everyone's favorite subject, but a resource that we're happy to provide to both students and lawyers are the student debt resources that we have. So we know that public interest work is so important, but public interest lawyers don't earn as much as somebody who works in the private sector. And we want to ensure that a career like this is not only desirable because it's the work you want to do, but it's also affordable and that you're able to pursue it for the longevity of your career. So because of that, we send out monthly debt-focused newsletters. We have a pretty comprehensive ebook that goes through basically anything you'd ever want to know about, managing your loans, earning public service loan forgiveness, how to get on an income-driven repayment plan. We also have monthly webinars that focus on all of that information too. So same thing, we'll go through, what types of loans you might have, what you qualify for based on the types of loans you have, how you can, work in public service for 10 years and get your loans forgiven through public service loan forgiveness. And if that's something that you don't think would be very beneficial now because you're still in law school, I do want to say, learn this information before you graduate so that once you graduate, you're really informed about what you should be doing with your loans. Something I definitely wish that I had done. And then you can also stay up to date on the work of our coalition to preserve public service loan forgiveness at www.preservepslf.com. Our organization does a lot of advocacy around preserving public service loan forgiveness because it is so important to public service workers and lawyers who work in public interest in the government. So if you're, interested to see the type of advocacy that we're doing around that, visit that website. You can always reach out to me and I can let you know how you can get more involved in that. All right, so let's talk more about becoming an Equal Justice Works Fellow. And for the purposes of our fellowship programs, a postgraduate fellow with Equal Justice Works is somebody who works a 2-year term, typically right after they graduate. And what's different between a fellowship and sort of a full-time staff attorney position is the fact that a fellowship is focused on a very specific issue area, either one that has been determined as a high priority issue area by Equal Justice Works, or one that you've designed yourself, a gap in legal services that you've noticed yourself and you've built a project around that. The difference is also the funding source. So if you become a staff attorney at a legal aid organization, the way that you are paid your salary will be different than how a fellow gets paid at a legal aid organization, because funding usually comes from somewhere like Equal Justice Works to ensure that that fellowship can, serve its term. And then another difference, we'll go through this as well, between a fellowship and a staff attorney position is sort of the cohort of other fellows working in the same issue area as you that you have with a fellowship. The technical assistance, the support, the trainings, the networking opportunities that you are provided because you're an Equal Justice Works fellow is really just so elevated, and it's such a great way to launch your career. So let's talk about the 2 different ways you can become an Equal Justice Works fellow. All right, so the first way you can become a fellow is by joining a fellowship program, and that's where you're working as a core on a designated priority issue. So how this is formed is essentially Equal Justice Works will determine that there's a high need in a certain issue area, and because of that, we'll get a cohort of fellows together to all work on the same issue area at the same time, either across the country or within a more narrow geographic location, so that those fellows can have the greatest impact with the greatest numbers. To join a fellowship program like this, you're interviewed and selected by the host organization that will be hosting you as a fellow. And because the high need that comes along with these programs, when we determine that we're going to have a fellowship program, usually the hiring happens right away because the need is so high, and we want to get fellows out in the field as soon as possible to really start doing all of that great work. So when it comes to deadlines and when these applications are due, they're really rolling pending what the funding looks like and when we can roll out some of these programs. And because of the high need, it's typical that a recent graduate will apply after graduation and sometimes after the bar exam so that they can be hired immediately. So depending on the program, there might be some other restrictions in place, but this is not the type of fellowship that you would apply for, let's say in your 3rd year of law school, because you wouldn't be able to be field ready right away. On the other hand, when you design your own fellowship, this is project-based. So instead of Equal Justice Works determining the sort of gap in legal services, you as the applicant are telling us what the gap in legal services is, and you design a project to fill that gap and to really fill that need with a host organization of your choice. So with designing your own fellowship, you work with your prospective host organization to design that project, and you submit it as a Rising 3L. Which is different than joining a fellowship program, because you typically need to be field ready to join one of those programs. With designing your own fellowship, you're really planning this almost a year in advance to ensure that you're ready to get out into the field after you graduate and work on this project. The process is different because interviews are conducted by Equal Justice Works staff and selected sponsors, which we will get into in more detail in just a minute. All right, so a little bit more information about joining a fellowship program. This is really the steps that you should take to do that. First, learn about our programs, find out which ones we're offering that address the different legal issues that you might care about, because there will be a range. Explore those current programs and see which one really aligns with your passions. Then you select a program. So you'll view the list of organizations that are part of this program and hosting fellows, and you'll apply directly to that host organization. That's where you'll submit your application, and the organization will decide who is the best fit for that fellowship. The fellowships that we have out in the field right now are the Disaster Resilience Program, which those fellows provide comprehensive legal services before, during, and after a disaster. The Elder Justice Program, which addresses the gap in legal services for victims of elder abuse and exploitation with a special emphasis on serving rural communities, and the Housing Justice Program, which provides legal advice, referrals, and full representation for tenants in support of safe, fair, and affordable housing. These are really priority areas when it comes to equal justice work. So over the next few years, you will see more programs focused on disaster, focused on housing, focused on helping victims of crime, because those are sort of areas that we've deemed as pretty important going forward and a gap that we're trying to fill in legal services across the country. So I believe I mentioned this before, but a fellowship is a fully paid position. And I know that it is different than a staff attorney position because of the way that it's funded, but you do get a full salary, and those will vary depending on the program with these fellowships. So healthcare coverage and other fringe benefits will also be provided. Again, they'll vary depending on the program. All fellows, whether you're in a design your own fellowship or in a cohort program, will attend the leadership development training each October of your fellowship. That is a 3-day event where fellows come to do workshops, to do skill-based trainings, to network with each other, to talk through some of the challenges of their fellowship, the successes of their fellowship, and really just prepare them for success when it comes to the work that they're doing. There are also additional trainings and learning events with every fellowship program, and those are really beneficial to focus on things outside of your fellowship, like maybe managing an intern or other areas of your work that you can learn more from in these trainings. And then one of the most amazing parts of the fellowship program is that you have this built-in network of dedicated practitioners that are working in a similar field. And each of these fellowships has a monthly call with the other fellows where you talk through what you're working on. Sometimes fellows work on things together and they create different guides and workbooks for clients and for other organizations that really can impact the type of work and the type of advocacy that other lawyers are able to have within the same community. So that built-in network is one of the best parts of being a part of this cohort program. All right, and moving into what it means to design your own fellowship with Equal Justice Works. So this is a very unique opportunity for you to essentially design your own dream job for after you graduate. And what distinguishes this from a regular job opportunity is the fact that you're actually partnering with a host organization in advance of submitting your application, and they're promising to host you throughout the 2 years of your fellowship, and you'll be working alongside them to ensure that your project is going forward. And the project is typically something that they wouldn't be able to offer if not for your 2-year fellowship. So they wouldn't be able to offer a certain community this type of legal services, or they wouldn't be able to offer pro bono attorneys the opportunity to help clients in this way. Whatever your project is, it really is filling a need that organization has, and something that they wouldn't be able to provide to their constituents if not for your project. So because you're applying through an application that includes a lot of different information to share with Equal Justice Works and sponsors that will be looking at your applications, it's basically a business proposal. So what I'm going to do is go through sort of component by component to make sure that you're very well aware of what's required when you submit your application and to make sure that you'll be eligible. So starting with you as the candidate, you are the most important person when it comes to this application. You're the applicant, you're the person that's going to be doing the work. So really showing that you're the right person for this project, you're doing it at the right time, you're with the right host organization is all really important. But to ensure that you're the right person, you do need to be eligible for the fellowship. So typically the timing of applying for an Equal Justice Works fellowship is when you are a rising 3L. So if you're a 2L listening in right now, this is the time for you to be working on your application, to be connecting with a host site, to be building out your project proposal so that you can apply in September. And then you go through the rest of the application, the selection process throughout your 3L year. You're selected as a fellow come that May. and you take the bar exam, you start up your fellowship that next September. So that is the typical timeline. Not everybody follows it, everybody's different, but to be eligible, you do need to graduate from your law school, and it needs to be a member law school, but almost every law school is a member law school of Equal Justice Works by September 2022. So that's when your fellowship would start for this next class. If you're a 1L, if you're rising 2L, then you would have to graduate by September 2023, because that's when your fellowship would be starting. If you don't go into your fellowship right away, our rule is that you can't have held any previous full-time permanent public interest attorney positions before starting the fellowship. And we say that because this fellowship is really designed to launch your public interest career. And if you were already able to do that with a public interest attorney position at an organization, then you don't really need this fellowship to do it. But you can have clerked before you start your fellowship. You can do a GAP fellowship, meaning a smaller participation in a smaller fellowship program that isn't Skadden or Echoing Green or Soros. You can have worked in the private sector for a couple years and then decided that it's time for you to switch over to what you're passionate about in public interest. We've had a handful of attorneys do that. But it's just that no previous full-time permanent public interest positions and no previous participation in other major fellowship programs. Those are the only ones that will disqualify you. What's unique about applying for this program is that we do not ask for transcripts. We don't ask for your GPA, your class rank. None of that is required in the application process. All right, so the project itself, an eligible project will focus on underserved people and or issues in the legal system. And when it comes to the types of projects we've seen, you can focus on criminal justice reform, on immigration, on housing, on children's issues, on disability rights. I will show you at the end of the presentation a snapshot of our website, and that will help you look at what other fellows are doing out in the field, and you really see the range of the types of issue areas that fellows have worked on in the past and the ones that they're working on now. When it comes to the type of work that you're doing, it can be direct services, but it can also be outside of that. So you can be doing different types of advocacy, education, litigation, community, community building, or some combination of all of those things. It does not need to be a, just narrowly direct services where you're representing clients in that capacity. And really the best projects have some sort of combination of all of these things to really address a lot of different needs in that legal issue. It does need to be an innovative project. And I mentioned this earlier. At your host organization, your project should fill a need that that organization wasn't able to fill without your project. So it could be an expansion of a type of service so that you're including more community members and more individuals in the types of services that you're providing. It could be adding a new type of service. It could be, adding a new resource to the organization that wasn't there before. Again, I will show you the tab on our website that will allow you to look at all the projects that are happening right now, so you can get a sense of what we mean by innovative. What it can't be is, first of all, a typical staff attorney position. So if there's an attorney that's already doing that work and they would hire for it anyway, that can't really be considered innovative. And we don't fund public defender positions or positions focused on international law. So it does need to be US-based law. And when you are applying, you can be focused on criminal justice, and especially criminal justice reform and all the different issues that come out of that. But again, it can't be a typical public defender position. Another key to success is built-in sustainability. And what we mean by that is this is a 2-year project. So the term is 2 years. Projects do not go longer than that, but your project should have the potential to live on after you leave. And so describing how it can sustain itself after, or if you leave the organization after your project is over, is part of the application process. And your project itself should be ambitious but feasible. So, because this is only a 2-year project, if you put down on paper, these 100 things you're going to do, and someone looking at it would think, you know, this is actually something that would take 10 years to complete. That's important. You do want to make sure that you're being ambitious and you're trying to help as many people as possible with your project, but that it's feasible. It's something that can actually be done in 2 years. So like I mentioned, what distinguishes this fellowship program from other jobs is the fact that you're connecting with a host organization, you're partnering with a host organization before you submit your application. So an eligible host organization is a nonprofit organization with legal staff. They must be capable of providing benefits, health insurance. We say office space, but whatever office space means to your organization is fine with us. I am, of course, sitting in my home office right now, and I know many of us still are. So that part is obviously very flexible at the moment and will continue to be. Your host organization should be able to support and supervise new attorneys, and again, based in the US or its territories. We don't fund international projects. When you're thinking about your host organization, you know, aligning your mission, you know, your project focus, the type of work that you want to do, the type of lawyer that you want to be, aligning all of those things with the vision and mission of your organization is so important. You also need to ensure that your supervisor has experience in the project area and that they're able to, of course, supervise you and support you throughout the fellowship experience. When it comes to who to connect with, a prior relationship is always a plus. If you did volunteer or intern with a host organization, or I'm sorry, with an organization that you've admired in the past, that is a great place to start, and you know, a great organization to start having conversations with if you're serious about submitting a fellowship application. But that's always not, you know, right in front of you. So we always encourage you to look far and wide for the best fit when it comes to who you should partner with. You can check out psjd.org. A lot of organizations will post the fact that they're looking for a fellow to apply for an Equal Justice Works fellowship with, and then you can partner with them that way. It is an extra level when it comes to applying for the program because you need to apply to the host organization first and go through that formalized process before you start your application. But at least you know that that organization is committed to submitting an application, and if you are really aligned on all of you know, the aspects of the application and the project, then you might have a good chance of applying with that organization. If you talk to an organization who's, you know, never heard of Equal Justice Works, they've never applied for a fellowship before, we have a lot of resources for legal aid organizations on our website, and we're also always happy to talk to organizations who are new to the process and answer any questions that they might have. All right, so the last component of the Equal Justice Works Fellowship are our very generous sponsors. So our sponsors are law firms, corporations, foundations, sometimes individuals, sometimes anonymous donors who really believe in the mission of Equal Justice Works. So they help fund our fellowships. And because they're providing so much funding to help further the mission, many of them might have a specific preference of what type of project they'd most like to supply funding for. So what is great about that is that we can share that information, and we always do share that information with applicants so that you can use it to your benefit. And because they may express an issue area or a geographic preference, you can take a look at that list and see that, oh, you know, I'm really interested in doing immigration work, but I wasn't really sure if I should do it in, let's say, Texas or California. It looks like there's a really high preference for sponsors who want to fund in Texas for this work. Maybe I'll decide to focus there. You know, if you're in a situation like that, you can always you know, use this list to your benefit to help sort of cater what your application looks like. But we do, you know, no matter what that sponsor preference list looks like, we do always encourage you follow what you want to do with your work, follow your passion, what you know, went to law school for, what you have the most knowledge about, the most understanding about, because that will really come through in your application. It's really easy to tell that somebody just picked the most funded issue area and did an application to follow that instead of following their passion. So that's advice that I would give anyone interested in a fellowship position. But on our website right now, you can see those sponsor preferences and see just where some sort of geographic and issue area popularity is. All right, so moving into the benefits of this program, the salaries are set by the host organization and they'll be similar to what a starting staff attorney would make at that organization. You'll get healthcare coverage, you'll get other fringe benefits. You'll also be able to apply for our loan repayment assistance through Equal Justice Works, meaning that throughout your fellowship, Equal Justice Works will help you pay your law school loans if you have them. You'll also attend that leadership development training in October that I mentioned earlier when I talked about the cohort benefits. And of course, the network of so many fellows and so many alumni who have gone through this process as well. They've designed their own projects. They were able to see them come to fruition, and many of them have just ended up in amazing roles further on in their career. We have prior fellows who have become executive directors of organizations. They've founded their own organizations. They're doing some really amazing things, and you'll be part of that network. All right, so I kept talking about this Meet Our Fellows tab. This is such a great resource on our website because you can sort of filter out what type of project you want to learn more about. So if it's by issue area, if it's by law school, if you want to see which fellows came out of your law school and the types of projects they focused on, if you want to look at host organizations, you can filter out through those different topics and see what our fellows are doing out in the field and see what alums have done in the past out in the field with their projects. And this is a great place to start if you you're not connected with a host organization yet. If you're just starting the process, I would start here on this Meet the Fellows tab. All right, so if you are a Rising 3L, this is your time. The applications are open now and they're due in September. After they're submitted, that's when the applications go to our alumni review sort of panel. And so we'll send all the applications out to our alumni, they'll score them, send them back to us, and that's when we start slating them for the different sponsors. Meaning that, to go back to our example earlier, if there's a sponsor that said, I really want to see an immigration focused project in Texas, and you're an immigration project in Texas, then we'll show that to the sponsor and they may choose to interview you and select you as a fellow alongside Equal Justice Works. If we also have a sponsor that says, I just want to see every single immigration focused project from across the country, I don't care where it is, I just really, care about that issue area, then we might also show and slate your application for that sponsor as well, meaning that you could be in front of a couple of different sponsors in Equal Justice Works and have a couple of different interviews for your fellowship. So that's what you can expect between October and usually March is when we've started to wrap up the selection process. But by May, the selection process is totally closed. The class of fellows will be announced. You'll go and take the bar exam over the summer, and then by that September, you'll start your work at your organization. And the 1L timeline, so if you're a Rising 2L right now, we'll just add a year to each of those timelines. The process will look the exact same, but you will submit your proposal next September, not this September. And again, you can do a clerkship, and then that means that you wouldn't apply until the September after, during your clerkship. You can do some other things in the meantime, but most people do apply in their third year of law school so that they're ready to start their fellowship right after they graduate. All right, so I know I gave a lot of information today about Equal Justice Works, but overall, Equal Justice Works is here to support law students who are pursuing careers in public interest law. In whatever way we can help you do that, we really want to. So please connect with us. You can visit our website, or you can email me if you have any follow-up questions about any of the programs or opportunities that I covered today. But otherwise, thank you all for joining so much. I will stay on the line for just a minute to see if there are any questions, but if not, I hope everyone has a great day, and my apologies that we started late. It won't happen again. Thanks, everyone.